All I'm doing now is just cleaning this up, getting the dust off, and I'll eventually use some rubbing alcohol and clean it out. I'm just getting it ready for the slip plate. So, just cleaning her out. Alright, now I'm going to give everything a good rub down with isopropyl alcohol, just rubbing alcohol. I obviously wouldn't go through these lengths if this was, you know, a used deck or anything like that, or it had any life on it, because we're just starting out and it's brand new. Now's the time to do all this stuff. So you clean it real well, get all the grease off, and then we'll put the slip plate on. You basically just prep it like you would if you're painting something, you know, if you're painting metal. So we'll get all that prepped, then we'll put on the slip plate. Slip plate number 1, heavy duty stuff. All sorts of applications for it. I got a big gallon can of it because I can use it on the snowblower, I can use it on my Jeep, all sorts of stuff. It's really difficult to mix, so I'm going to mix this for a while, then I'll pop the lid, stir it up, and show you guys what you think. It's all gunked up in here. I can't be bothered, but you should take it to a place and see if they'll mix it for you. I tried. See, look at this. I tried mixing it by hand, just by shaking it for a while. I get tired and bored, and now I'm trying this. Alright, this has been like a solid 10 minutes of mixing, and I still have huge clumps. I mean, it is breaking apart and getting thicker, but when people say you need a mixing machine, they really mean it, and it makes a mess. As careful as you're trying to be, it's just about impossible. And to the point where I'm no longer pulling, well, I guess I am still pulling clumps. I didn't think I was still pulling clumps. It feels thick in the middle, but it's getting there. This has been quite a while mixing, and probably more effort than you want to spend. Here we are. I'm going to call it good. It is much thicker consistency now. Alright, I don't really think there's a right or wrong to this stuff. I'm just using an old crappy brush. Everyone says plan on throwing your brush away when you're done. Being such a glossy surface, it doesn't even want to stay on the paint. When you get the glossy paint, it doesn't really want to stick to it, so it's going to dry a little, but it just goes on nice and thick. If you do it nice and thick, it kind of works. It's going to need 2 coats for sure, is what I'm seeing. And thankfully you don't have to make it look good. That is the first coat. Not the best results in the world. And you can see the paintbrush marks. So you would think that things would stick and adhere to that. But I don't know, maybe it was a crappy brush or whatever. I don't know how you can get it on there without, unless you get the spray kind. And then I hear the nozzle clogs all the time, and that stuff's not nearly thick enough. I think one thing that might help is if you take like a Scotch pad or a Brillo pad and you rough up your paint, your deck. Like, you don't want to ruin the paint, you don't want to ruin the top coat, but you need to create just a little abrasion so that you can get some sort of mechanical bond. I didn't do that. I didn't really even think about it. That might have helped. I don't know. But I'm going to do another coat. As you can see, it's thin in spots, but when you touch it with a brush, it doesn't really go on like paint. It's weird. It has dried overnight. Definitely needs 2 coats. So some things that I've learned about the slip plate, when it's like these drips, when it's on real thick, it seems to work really well. Like that's really slippery. This stuff, isn't at all. So that, and then I've also figured out, I watched some other videos and whatnot, I'm gonna put slip plate on these blocks and this little round piece, and then you kind of rub it when you're done, and it doesn't really sand it or whatever, but it kind of helps push that graphite into its own little cracks and crevices, and it's you get the 2 slip plate surfaces rubbing on each other, and it just smooths it all out, is the advice I've been given, and makes sense to me. Also, the next thing, you need a well ventilated area. So when you're mixing this stuff, it doesn't really smell that bad while you're mixing it and you're putting it on. I mean, it's got a scent, but it's not anything unusual. But as it kind of dries, it off gases quite a bit, and that in there is where I was doing it, and it's effectively my basement. We kind of drive in like this, and it just made the whole house stink. So it was really, really bad as it was drying. I had to move it out here into the garage, and now I'll do the second coat like this. So that's what I've learned so far. Another thing I need to mention about this stuff is it gets everywhere. It's super messy, and it is not easy to clean up. So if you can remember, wear gloves. Of course, I already got it on myself, but wear gloves. And if you're worried about getting it like on the exterior, which I do have some stuff, or if you're using it on a different application and you get it on something that you don't want to see, I've heard that, and I've seen that WD-40, you have to like spray it immediately while it's still wet with WD-40, and then wipe it up. So keep some paper towels handy, and yeah, it's very messy. The second coat of this stuff's looking much, much better. Getting really good coverage now. I don't have all that high of hopes for this stuff, especially on a lawnmower deck. I think it's a really neat product. I think it has a lot of great uses, but the abrasion is so significant on a inside part of a lawnmower that I can't really imagine the stuff's going to last, because I know that powder coat doesn't last, so can't imagine that this stuff will. But with that said, it's kind of like now or never when you buy a new lawnmower. Like, I'm certainly not going to do this after it's dirty. I'm not going to go through this amount of effort. And maybe if you're restoring it, because I mean, you have to get it down to fresh, clean paint, and my lawnmower will never be this clean again. So don't know about you guys, but I certainly don't wash it after every time or do any of that stuff. I don't know if you can see it in the back. Yeah, see, I got my snowblower over there, and I'm more interested in trying this slip plate on that, because I do know that I use silicone. I spray my machine down the inside where the augers are, and every time before I snowblow, I'll spray silicone, and it works absolute wonders. I never have a clog. Not only is it a fantastic snowblower, but I think spraying it really helps as well. So if I could maybe use this and not have to spray it every time, that might be a pretty cool thing. All right, so there's the second coat, and as you can see, there's still some spots where it just won't adhere, and that's probably my fault, and I didn't clean well enough with the rubbing alcohol. It's probably like grease residue or something in those areas. So maybe I'll try another coat if I have the stuff out, but I'm not sure. And you can see, I don't know if this shows it on my hand. See how it's nice and shiny? So basically it's kind of set up a little, it's drier there, but it's when you kind of rub it together, and that's why I made these wooden blocks that I'm gonna rub over the surface once it's dry. That's what's gonna make it smooth out, slippery, and everything. Kind of my impressions at this point, obviously I haven't used it yet, so I don't know anything at all, but my impressions are that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Just meaning this is, you know, that stuff's not cheap. This is a lot of time and effort and everything else, and I'm not sure that it's going to be worth it in the long run, just because even if this stuff gets as smooth can ever be, it's just going to wear off really quickly in a lawnmower. So I don't know. Obviously I'll be able to answer that question better at the end of the season and stuff like that, but my impressions right now are cool product, but maybe not for lawnmower decks. Okay, so this is after 2 coats, pretty thick coats of the slip plate, and you can see all of the brush marks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take those blocks that I had coated with slip plate and just run them all over there, kind of smooth this out a little bit. Alright, you can see after just rubbing it a little bit, these blocks, that how much shinier it's getting, and it is very slick. So I mean, if other applications, especially in the agriculture farm industry, grain, gravel chutes, this stuff probably work really, really well. And it doesn't, I mean, I'm not taking anything off. Like, there's just a little residue. I'm not like really sanding it. You just kind of, it just kind of buffs it. It kind of smooths it out. So pretty neat. I'm not going to go crazy here. I'm just kind of playing. As I've been doing this, like basically my mind is just running with all sorts of different uses for this stuff. And that's really where I think it'd be great. I mean, it's so hydrophobic. Like all I can think of is Chevy Chase in the Flying Saucer sled scene, like how awesome this would be on, you know, stuff like that. Lots of really cool things that I'm sure you guys can think of too that this would work well on. So because I'm autistic, I had to do the 3rd coat, and basically this really just provided even coverage over everything. And as you'll see, the key is using a foam brush instead of a bristled brush, and that gave a much flatter and even coating over everything. So foam brushes for the win. Use foam brushes when you're using this stuff if you care about how it looks. Okay, so this is how the slip plate held up after 1 use. This is after 1 cut, roughly 2/3 of an acre, a little bit less. And You can see the wear that's already occurring, and also where the, kind of the sludge buildup occurs as well. So this is one cut with the slip plate. I'll have to follow up with you guys on a long-term review at the end of the season when we get this thing ready for winter. We'll scrape the deck and see what's under there after, a whole season of use. But this is what it looks like after one use. So again, I don't think it's going to hold up under the abrasion. But a lot of work, a lot of effort. I'm not sure that this is the best use for this product, but we'll keep updating you as I use slip plate for different things. Thanks.